Throughout my life, I studied in 3 different schools in 2 completely different countries. That is, Russia and the United States. I absolutely hated school in Russia. It is a boring, useless place with angry teachers who hate their lives. And it's not an exaggeration. When I moved to the United States, I loved the schools here. But after some time, I noticed the same patterns, same mindsets that are being implanted into you. When I went to 11th grade, I had enough of that and switched to homeschooling. Then it was a long journey of understanding the harm caused by school and fixing it. And here is what it led me to realize. First, school learning is actually backwards. Paradoxically, school doesn't teach you to learn. For example, if you ever tried to learn Photoshop, you'll likely figure out the best way to actually do this. And let me tell you, the best way to learn Photoshop is exactly the best way to learn anything else. First, you think of what you want to do. That is, you get a question, you get some goal you want to achieve, you get some project to do. Then you answer that question, either by figuring out the answer yourself, failing, developing new guesses, trying it again, or you just actually learn the information necessary. And only after that, you will actually be able to get a new question, to set a new goal, to get a new project, and that new one will be bigger and more advanced than the previous one you finished. Now, compare that to what's happening in schools. First, they teach you everything about the topic, and then you need to answer questions about it. They are giving you the answer before you got any questions, which is the exact opposite of what's happening when you are learning stuff naturally. And what's worse is that this mindset then being passed to other areas of your life. If you learn to act one way in one situation, you are much more likely to continue acting in a similar way in a different situation. The way it translates to life is something like you start thinking that first you need to figure out how to make $1 million, learn all the necessary information, learn from people who made the $1 million, and only then you will start acting and making money. When in reality, you need to start doing what you can do now. Start with a few $100s. Because despite what the school teaches you, it is okay to not know how to make $1 million when you haven't made even a few thousand. That's how it's supposed to be. Life is like walking stairs, where you only can see one step ahead. You don't see the whole staircase. You only see one step ahead. And once you make that step, you see the next one. You make the second step, you see the next one. And that's how you eventually get to your goal. Not by studying the plan of the whole staircase before you even start walking, because there is no such a plan in real life. Second, school punishes you for mistakes. You made a mistake, you get an F. Basically, the more mistakes you make, the worse off you are in school. Which is, again, completely backwards from how it works in real life. Because in real life, the real winners are those who aren't afraid to make shit tons of mistakes on the way to their goal. Those who try and try and try again eventually accumulate the critical mass of knowledge necessary to achieve success. That's why people say that success is exponential. At first you're trying and trying and trying and nothing happens. But then you accumulate this critical mass of knowledge. You actually have enough knowledge now to achieve something. And that's where that exponential growth happens. It's that stuff that you figured out previously starts working. There's this famous logical anecdote that basically says that if you put a monkey with eternal lifespan to randomly type a letter on a typing machine with infinite ink, eventually it will write a book. In fact, eventually it will write all the books that ever existed or will exist. And that is actually a mathematical truth. You may say, so what that it's a mathematical truth? I don't have an infinite lifespan, nor infinite resources like that monkey. And I say that you are also not doing stuff randomly. You are making a guess, then typing something, and see if it works. Then based on the result, you are typing some more stuff. And with each mistake, you get new information. That's why you will write a book much faster than a monkey that types randomly. And also, you do not need to repeat your success over and over again. You need to achieve it once, and you'll be rich for life. So don't be afraid to make mistakes. Make more of them. And third, school teaches you to submit to authority. Think about the absurdity of it. School is the only place, besides high security prisons and sometimes military, where you need to ask whether you can use the bathroom. To be honest, you are extremely lucky if you never experienced schools in Russia. There is much more of this bullshit there. They can easily shame you in front of the whole class if your uniform is anything less than ideal. Or if you forgot to fill your diary, which is like completely useless because everything's digital now. Or if you didn't do some other completely useless bullshit. And when I say shame, I don't mean they just tell you to fix that. I mean, they will literally yell and curse at you, which is basically emotional abuse, but it's not like anybody cares there. Here in the US, it highly depends on a school, but even in the good ones, it is still not ideal. You still have to get permission to go to the bathroom, for instance. You're still forced to learn stuff you're completely uninterested in. You cannot talk in class or use your phone. And you might say, duh, it's necessary for learning. But all of these things lead to decrease in your subjective rank, which in itself has a lot of consequences. Particularly, it lowers your confidence and makes you hesitant to take resources from society. I love giving the monkey tribe example to explain it better. If a low-ranking monkey will try to take bananas from a high-ranking monkey, it will get attacked. That's why the brain of the low-ranking monkey will release certain hormones that will suppress the desire to take the bananas from the high-ranking monkey. It works in the exact same way in humans. The hormone responsible for it is called prolactin, and all those things in school raise your prolactin levels, which makes it much harder to improve yourself. And so the only way to actually mitigate this effect from school is to develop your confidence and learn to be socially dominant. But that's the topic for another video. In conclusion, just like everything in life, school isn't necessarily bad, it's just a tool. Your goal is to minimize the downsides and maximize the upsides. And if you want me to make the video on how to take the maximum from school, let me know in the comments. I see you in the next one, and remember, discipline is freedom.